Hello, good evening, and welcome back. Well, good news. As we had hoped, it seems that it is actually happening. As they say, so who is going to stop Christmas Tier 4 rule breakers? Councils say COVID marshals won't be knocking on doors over festive season after police also ruled it out, as officers slam toothless tiger laws that leave them powerless to crack down on. And that is what we were hoping, that the police would choose to not enforce the laws over the festive period. They would understand that when they took their oath to serve and protect, for want of a better phrase, that this is not the kind of thing that would be under their jurisdiction. And although it's only from Essex at the moment, with Ken Marsh, who's decided to be the spokesman for it, it's quite understood that this is actually national coverage, because, of course, laws can be created and passed, but if you haven't got enforcement of those laws, then there's basically no point in having them, and people aren't really going to care. It's a bit like the difference between decriminalising and legalising. It's that kind of thing, that sure, the law's there, but it's not really going to be covered, and especially in Britain, we have such ancient laws that ideally we'd get rid of, but they're not enforced, so normally people don't really pay any attention to them, and instead these laws are there to target people so that everybody breaks the law, but it's not enforced unless there's a particular dissident or target which the government wishes to go after, and they'll be able to get them on that. Not too dissimilar from the classic of drug dealers and kingpins getting caught up on speeding tickets. It's that sort of thing, that they cast such a wide net that they can always get you on something or some technicality. But the good news, as I say, is, as Ken Marsh says, for Tier 4, but it seems to be the case around the nation as well, that the police will decide to not knock on doors. And why do they say they're toothless tiger laws? That's because if you don't want the police to enter your property, then they can't. They do still need a warrant. You can let them in, but it's strongly advised that you do not let them in. So Ken Marsh, chairman of Metropolitan Police Federation, said there is no way officers will knock on doors. He called COVID laws a toothless tiger because if households refuse to open door, officers cannot gain entry. Police and Crime Commissioner for Essex revealed that officers are relying on compliance by the public. Sorry, they rush these things out. So councils have today said COVID marshals will not be knocking on doors to catch any Christmas bubble rule breakers after police chiefs also ruled out visiting homes and setting up roadblocks over the festive season. The only type of roadblocks they will be having are for Christmas drink drivers. If they are stopped, they will then be asked where they're from and where they're going, and if they congratulations, you're not drunk. However, you're not allowed to be doing this. Therefore, we're going to pin this charge on you, which is separate from what you might have been thinking. So they will still be around, and if you're doing anything suspicious, they will stop you, and only at that point will they then bring in the other existing laws. Similarly for households, only if there are complaints or reports, or it seems obvious that you've got half a dozen to a dozen cars in the driveway, and it seems like there's a party going on, only at that point where you're drawing attention to yourself, are they then going to knock on your door. Which is still unacceptable, don't get me wrong, but at the very least, if you're not making a fuss, they won't bring the fuss to you. So you can still have your family gatherings if you're subdued about it, shall we say, which I'm sure people will be anyway. But my favourite bit of all this is that while speaking on the BBC, Mr Marsh was asked whether it was a tough ask from the government to expect officers in Tier 4 areas to police the new rules. He said, "It's not a tough ask for us, because it won't be happening." And bravo, Mr Marsh. Jolly good show, chap. We won't be knocking on people's doors at all, unless there is a large group, a party or something like that. But normal day-to-day households, there is no way that my colleagues will be dealing with that. Because you've also got to consider that the police officers are regular folk as well, and they don't really want to have the hassle of breaking up people over Christmas when they would rather be spreading festive cheer instead. And there are far more serious things to deal with, and even to a lesser extent, if the police do not wish to get in harm's way, that of course you've got the big backed up issues with lorry drivers being stranded in Kent, and of course they do need provisions, food and water, that kind of thing. Good luck getting a shower, anything, that's not going to happen. And 15 of them have been issued parking fines as well, because you can't be parked on a motorway. Where are you supposed to go? Just turn off and find a back road, I suppose, where you're okay to stay overnight, but good luck with that. So yeah, there are more pressing things for the police to actually deal with, and if they wish to do their job properly, then they could, by all means, stop the murders, or maybe investigate burglaries. That would make a nice change. I know it's worse in Greater Manchester, but it's still not looking good around the country either, because they're too concerned about looking racist. So, good old Ken says, what we will be doing is increasing the police presence so there's more visibility, but ultimately, really, this is down to compliance by the public. The vast bulk of the populace really want to make this work. They really understand what's going on. Here in Essex, with a population of 1.8 million, we've still had less than 10,000 engagements in total since this crisis started, only a few hundred fixed penalty notices, and only a few dozen arrests. So you can see most people want to make this work. And let us hope that that's a reflection of the police force instead of individuals. But I'm sure we all remember that at the start of this, there was public support for, 2 weeks to flatten the curve, just trying to understand what is going on. And hey, we might not like it, but it's only 2 weeks. They're not going to extend this for, 2 months, that kind of thing, because that would be ridiculous. They're not going to give people stay-at-home notices, because that's unfathomable. Except now both of those have happened, and therefore there is less support for it. There really is. If this increase in police presence doesn't really have an effect on social distancing, as you can see here, but instead prevents people from committing more serious crime, then, hey, maybe that's just something that we're going to have to accept. Maybe it'll have a more positive effect based on that aspect. So simply by having police presence there will be less serious crime, which has also been shown to a lesser extent, and it sounds a bit daft, but it is actually true, that you might have seen in some shops. I know Morrison's likes to do this, but so do some, like newsagents or off licenses. They'll have a cardboard cutout of a copper placed in their window, and that does actually lessen crime, even though everybody knows it's not a real police officer. From a distance, it could look like one, but also it's a reminder that, yeah, police do exist, and there might be someone here seeing that you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, and be available to crack down on you and punish you for it. Kind of a reminder to follow the law, if you will, a little nudge in the right direction. So by having a greater police presence and people being aware of that, because it comes down to public perception at the end of the day, that could help to lower more important crime instead of, just COVID compliance, if you will. And it's not COVID compliance per se, it's governmental compliance. But of course it is very, very coincidental that just when the new vaccine comes out and we're supposed to get back to normal, there's a new strain of the virus, which is worse. Oh, how convenient for the powers that be, if you will. But that's about it. So hopefully that's a bit of a white pill, if you will, to understand that the police officers are still human, and the laws don't mean anything if they're not enforced. And although you might have a governmental edict from the top, when it comes down to the individuals who actually have to enforce these laws, they know their community better, and they know why they picked that job, and they're not just puppets. They do have their own moral agency as well, or we should hope so. So hopefully there's some good news for you going into Christmas, and you can relax a bit and enjoy the time with your family that I hope you were going to do anyway. But as always, let me know what you guys think down below. Always intrigued to hear what you guys have to say, and as always, until next time, have a good one.